Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, depends of the part of the world you are now. Today, we make the presentation. The first PS hack presentation with Fatah, Mr. Fatah. Fatah, welcome to your presentation. You can start.
Thank you, Thiago. Thank you, Thiago. So, welcome you all in this training session. So, we are very delighted because we have got a huge response from all of you. We are enthusiastic to work with all of you. I know that you all are very much eager to contribute to Power and Energy Society, in particular, doing some humanitarian activities. So, today, I'll be discussing on designing power and energy related humanitarian technology projects in sustainable development space. I know like the audience here, some of you are undergrad students, some of you are graduate students or young professionals mainly. So if I just go back, we had a very successful workshop in 2018, IEEE PES Student Congress held in Brazil. So we can say that's the Ignite session. We got a lot of requests with lot of enthusiasm that our volunteers they wanted to know more about humanitarian activities where they can contribute. So that's why at the beginning in the slide title, after the title, I'm telling that it's a follow-up session after the successful hack workshop held in Brazil in 2018 IEEE PS Student Congress. I am Sheikh Fattah. So basically today I'm here because we had formed an ad hoc committee in Power and Energy Society. So under the membership VP to promote humanitarian activities. So we are calling it that particular ad hoc committee like PES Humanitarian Activity Committee, PES HAC. And I know a lot of volunteers you have responded to support us to enhance the humanitarian activities in power and energy related areas. Just a brief introduction about myself. My day job is teaching, like I'm professor in the Department of Triple E in Buyet, as well as I'm director of Institute of Nuclear Power Engineering in Buyet. So one of the major reasons I am here with all those humanitarian activity staffs, because 2018 I am serving as education chair of IEEE Humanitarian Activity Committee. It's a committee that directly report to IEEE board, and I have many involvement with IEEE PES. For example, some of you may have seen me as a role like I am the editor of Power and Energy Society News Update, and I am the Long Range Planning Committee member of IEEE PES. So I have been involved in different humanitarian activities. In particular, last year we organized IEEE Region 10 Humanitarian Technology Conference. We call it R10HTC, with a huge success, more than 700 participants in Region 10. So I was the general chair for that particular conference. So I served different other IEEE technical societies in different roles and have some awards in my name. Just to share, like I am a volunteer, so I know many of you are volunteers. I am sure that uh, you will be also getting a lot of hours in course of time. So what's the objectives today? To offer necessary interactive training to professional engineers or engineering students who want to serve local community with the help of advanced technology in power and energy sector, to cover fundamental knowledge and skills required to deal with humanity and technology projects or events targeting sustainable development goals. So in our objective, you can see some of the words are blue colored. Local community, that's our main target because we are volunteers. We are passionate to serve our local community. But we are at the same time engineers or going to be an engineers. So we have the objective to use as much as possible advanced technology. In particular, we are now in the vicinity in the area of power and energy sector. Obviously, there are terminologies which may be new for you: humanitarian technology and sustainable development. So, hope at the end of the day, we can have a better understanding about all these terminologies. First of all, humanitarian activity versus humanitarian technology. Many of us confused are confused with these two terminologies. So humanitarian, yes, that's the buzzword. That means concerned with or seeking to promote human welfare, to do some good for our local community, for our humankind. So you can go to a school and teach our young students about the hygiene, sanitation, or you can go to a slum area and can give them training on sanitation or electrical safety. So these are all useful humanitarian activity, doing some human welfare. But in many cases, you can see there is a direct involvement of technology, engineering skill, or sometimes it's not necessary. So as far as we are concerned, as I said earlier, we are engineer or going to be engineer. We concentrate more on engineering aspect or technology applications. In that perspective, we want to contribute our local community, humankind, by designing some technological tools so we can serve the community. We can do the humanitarian activity with the help of some advanced technology, engineering technology. In that case, we can say we are doing some humanitarian technology project or event. So that's why it should be clear that we are focusing on humanitarian technology projects. Not necessarily we are very much interested on humanitarian activity. By default, we are doing some humanitarian activity, but emphasizing humanitarian technology projects where technology is involved. So to make you clear at the very beginning, I want to give some examples which may make you clear about our scope of areas. Humanitarian technology projects. For example, off-grid electricity generation using renewable sources, or any kind of alternative sources. So this is an humanitarian technology example. So you can ask me why humanitarian you are calling it. because in some way your objective is to save energy, give a better life for our future generation, to get optimized use of current resources serving our mankind. So these are, I mean, somehow relevant to humanitarian technology. So energy saving techniques for street lighting, I have seen similar projects students are doing, or many, different organizations are also trying. It has also both aspects: technology for saving energy, developing modern control techniques, as well as using renewables. So, this is also humanitarian technology. Industry automation, and you can also use these energy savings for residential, commercial buildings. So, somehow you have both technological implementation as well as humanitarian aspect. You know about the initiatives by IEEE regarding IEEE Smart Village, Smart City. So these are definitely serving the humanitarian purpose, as well as technology is involved. So humanitarian technology. Non-polluting energy saving heating or cooking methods. Energy management during disaster or crisis period. Technologies for clean water and sanitation. Agricultural technologies. For example, in irrigation, you may uh, ask question like, for the last few examples, whether power and energy society areas are directly related or not. So if you go deeper, even for agricultural technologies, you will see nowadays renewable energies are used widely for the irrigation purpose, different pump operations, and at the same time for producing clean water and sanitation, you can think about those alternative energies. So in this way, I hope I can give you some examples where you can see like what you are doing, many of us are doing, knowingly or unknowingly. We are involved with humanitarian technology. I mean, that's why whenever I do this type of workshops, I ask a simple question: are you involved with any non-humanitarian technology? Then you will see it's very simple. Most of your works, most of the technological development in power and energy related areas, I'm sure you can relate with some humanitarian aspect, maybe directly or indirectly. So I hope you may have some ideas about different types of humanitarian technology projects. In fact, many of you are already doing these type of projects and some of you are new. So I hope you can now imagine about different projects. So as I mentioned, in the objective, we are trying to develop humanitarian technology projects with sustainable development goals. So what's the meaning of sustainable development? I want to use this very simple definition. Sustainable development is a very, very important word nowadays, no matter in which areas you are working. Sustainable development means a development that meets the present needs without compromising future generations' ability to meet their needs. So, very simply, you have to meet the present needs without sacrificing future needs. So sometimes, most of us, we try to meet or fulfill our present needs we don't consider or what will happen if I fulfill my need, what will happen to my next generation. If I use these lands for solar panel, maybe some other people will be affected. Maybe this disadvantage. So always we have to think about other possibilities, needs for the future generations. So we cannot block or we cannot create any problem to those users who will be expecting to use those facilities in future. So that's the sustainable development. So it depends on three big pillars: people, planet, and profit. So people, I mean, for whom you are looking for the sustainable development, I mean, they are the ultimate beneficiary. So you have to make sure that you are targeting development with totally unbiased mean for each people, fair practices for all people. So the next one is the planet. In fact, you are doing something for somebody. How you'll do that? You have to use some resources from the planet. And in that case, you have to be careful about managing the renewables, renewable, non-renewable resources while reducing the waste. In that case, nowadays, we always consider recyclable, reusable materials. So we have to manage our resources in a logical fashion. We have to be equitable. So we have to utilize these resources and ensure all people they get the equal benefit. All individuals they get the proper benefit. And the last one is profit. Somehow, why we are doing these things? To give some benefit to our people using the resources from planet. Some something we have to measure the benefit. It could be financial or other benefits. So these are the three pillars, but in any case, sustainable development, here you can see the two issues. Issues are always there. One, we are targeting to meet the needs. Fine. That needs may vary depending on different situations like financial, technical, social, geographical, ethical, different issues. Need can be varied. But at the same time, you have to remember what is very important to you. You always will try to get that, but you have to consider the limitations. There may be a lot of limitations. Technological barriers can be there, social, organizational, environmental, finance, a lot of limitations are there. So we have to keep balance. We have to adjust our needs as per the limitations. So can we play a role in this sustainable development space? The answer is yes. Because development finally needs some sort of implementation. And as I said, we are engineers and going to be engineers. We can design and develop new products, services. So in that way, we can play a role in sustainable development. Whenever we try to develop anything, if we keep it in mind, whether that development is a sustainable development, that means that relates people, planet, and profit. That means using resources from planet in a logical fashion, we can give benefit to the people and earn profit. But in that case, while we are implementing something, we have to remember that not all implementation leads to a development. We are looking for development and on top of that, sustainable development. So always we have to think about the limitations and needs. And while we are implementing something, considering all those needs, then without considering limitations, if we just implement, that will not be a sustainable development. A smart engineer can bring development by doing some adaptive, well planned implementation or design. So, in that case, the first thing what we need to change the thinking process. So, we can develop a very innovative or very attractive technology, but we have to ask ourselves whether that technology will be a sustainable development or not. So if we just always keep it in mind that our technologies should be sustainable, then a change from one way of thinking to another, so that will bring the revolution. In that case, most of our development will be sustainable. So as I said, I'm serving as a IEEE Humanitarian Activity Committee Education Chair. So it's just a brief introduction to that Humanitarian Activity Committee, because this committee, I'm bringing it in front of you because you can always look for some fundings from IEEE Humanitarian Activity Committee. We provide 20,000 US dollar to 60,000 or more US dollar for different humanitarian technology projects. Each year there are 3 deadlines. So next year you can plan from now for humanitarian technology project here in IEEE Humanitarian Activity Committee. And you can also imagine some humanitarian activity, some events, and can get funding up to 15,000 US dollar. And they have special interest groups for humanitarian technology. So you can form a side group as as you are IEEE member. So 6 IEEE members, along with a lot. I mean, as much as you can take some non-IEEE members and can form side groups and can enjoy the benefit of this type of funding opportunities up to 20,000 US dollar. And so 3 times a year you can apply if you have a side group. So Paul Cunningham is our chair for IEEE Hack, and we are here, so you can apply there also. So this is, I mean, different opportunities of IEEE, as I said, in IEEE HSC. Apart from that, APICS and IEEE Smart Village, where Smart Village IEEE PES is heavily involved. You can apply. You can look for the other opportunities. About the Sustainable Development Goals, I mean, this is called United Nations 17 goals. I mean, you don't have to memorize all these goals, but these, every nation now, they are promised. Each nation is promised to ensure these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. So whenever you are thinking about designing a technical humanitarian technology project, why don't you connect with one of these sustainable development goals. If you go to UN pages, you can find details about all these 17 sustainable development goals. So these goals are like no poverty, end poverty in all its forms everywhere, zero hunger, good health and well-being, ensure quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation. I gave an example where PES areas are involved. This is obviously a very important sustainable development goals SDG 7 directly related to PES. Ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy for all. And there are other sustainable goals like SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, industry innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities. PES has different areas with these smart cities, smart villages, smart control. So, responsible consumptions and production. So, also, you have to be careful about proper balance between consumption and production. Climate action, PS is also concerned about that. Life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, partnerships for the goals. So these are the 17 SDGs, and they are in fact interrelated. So many of them depends on other. And if you are targeting a humanitarian technology project, so why don't you consider? I request you to consider to see which SDG is targeted with your project. So I just spent 2 minutes just to enhance the importance of the sustainable development goals. I hope you understand the importance, and obviously, you have found many people whom you like in this particular video, even videos. Uh, there was a survey in April, I guess. I mean, you can see e-news update issue. So we had a survey and we got the result like this: the factors controlling future trends in power energy society. And the first one was energy storage. People are thinking that which one will be a controlling factor in future in power energy sector, and that is energy storage. Why I'm telling that, I want to give you some examples of sustainable development, humanitarian technology areas relevant to power energy sector. So energy storage is attracting the most attention by all our volunteers, all our researchers. So power energy society, and in the sector related some innovations relevant to energy storage, you can have a quick look, at least understand. You can quickly find out some possible alternative solutions. You may design a humanitarian technology project in these application areas. For example, irrigation. This clearly can be used for agricultural purpose for irrigation. Biogas, it's a long problem and solutions, I can say, for cooking, heating. So you can uh, think about that. This is one particular area I'm telling about the renewables, because at the beginning I said like this is only few alternative energy solutions. You can have different application areas. For example, smart building management. So you can have different energy saving systems, control, and different alternative energy solutions. Even you can see like bicycle can be used for energy generation, and jogging shoes or how you're walking can also generate energy. Speed breakers, all you can get a lot of information about these things in the Google. So wave energy can also be used as an alternative source of energy, and wind energy is a very old but can be used for different modern applications. And thermal difference energy is also possible. Energy from leaf, I mean, bacteria, mud is also, people are thinking about that, and even from food, fruits, you can extract energy. So one task now we can imagine, it's a very simple task for you. I mean, you just have to think and provide 5 applications of humanitarian technology in power and energy sectors. 5 different applications. You just pick up 5 different applications. I have given a lot of examples, and you can Google and find very, very interesting applications where you have to clarify clearly the specific role or involvement of PES in that particular applications. Basically, at this moment, you are the PES volunteer, so it's expected that you have to clarify applications. So that's the one task, and mention humanitarian impact on each application. So find power and energy society area it's involved, but why you are calling that it's a humanitarian technology project? So why it's an HT project? So you have to clarify humanitarian impact, and please try to map the corresponding SDG. I mean, this particular application can be linked with SDG 3, SDG 5, something like that. And the next, comment on sustainable development. I mean, you have to pick up existing solutions. You have to pick up existing solutions, and for that particular solution, you have to explain why it is sustainable development solution or why not. You can select an very common, conventional, important, but if you can see that there is possibility of sustainable development, you can explain that. From session 1, I appreciate if you can this particular problem. So now we want to move to our design part, humanitarian technology project that you will be involved in humanitarian technology project design, and also you inspire other PES members, volunteers in your vicinity for this type of HT project design. So what are the key factors? That's the important thing. What are the key factors behind this HT project design? So first of all, as I said earlier, this is a sustainable humanitarian technology project. It should be a sustainable humanitarian technology projects. What does it mean? It's a very important one. So it implies the continuation of the project activities and sustenance of the project outcomes after the initial primary grant expires. Try to understand the difference between a project and humanitarian technology project. If an ordinary project is stopped, where maybe a person or an organization is involved, the loss will be for that particular person or that organization. But if you just imagine, if you are considering humanitarian technology project, at first the target of that project is to serve the local community, and at any level, if the project is unsuccessful, then there will be a huge impact on that particular local community. They were expecting an outcome, or they were habituating to get the benefit of that particular project, and all on a sudden, if that is stopped, then a large number of people will be affected. That we don't want. So that's why whenever you are planning to design a humanitarian technology project, please make sure the sustainability of the project, that the project can continue or sustain, the outcomes can be last for more and more duration even after the grant or initial donation or initial funding is expired. That's a very tricky part of this project design. You have to be careful while designing that. That means you have to ensure future funding flow, future finance flow. How? Yes, that's the very critical part. So you are getting some fund, starting a project, all on a sudden the fund can be stopped. And then what you'll do? That's why your design should be self-sustainable. So you are getting some fund, it's fine, but you have to generate some revenue or fund also. At least you have to have a plan to do that. That's the very important aspect. So that's we call financial sustainability, ensuring a steady flow of funds, generating revenue so that the project continues even in the absence of donor support. So please, this is a very important message. So the project cannot be stopped. So design should be like that. So ensuring a steady flow of funds and generating revenue so that the project continues even in the absence of donor support. And organizational sustainability, that's an important issue. Yes, there is a no problem revenues coming or there is enough funding, but the person who were involved or who had the skill, they left the project. Then even if you have money, you will not get that type of trained person. The organization which was involved in supporting this, all of a sudden it is collapsed. the technology which were used cannot be updated or somehow locked. So these are the issues you have to consider, that means ensuring continuation of institutional, manpower, or technological support. These are the fundamentals of sustainable HT project design. So if you just look at the steps, basic steps, more or less, the second part of the HT project design is very similar to other project, but the first part I was emphasizing just before is very different than the other projects. So at first, you have to understand what you are doing, what is your target to design sustainable humanitarian technology project. I said that sustainable means it involves 3P: people, planet, and profit. Okay, fine. You should have some revenue from which you can continue the project. That's why profit, the term is there. It sounds bad, but you can now understand that it's a revenue which will allow you to continue your project, which will give you some insurance, which will give you some credit so that you can continue your project. So that's the third P. Okay, the first P is important. So that's why you have to find out the local community to be served. Actually, to whom you want to serve. You are living in a place and you want to serve some people who are in a different country, different region, a different continent. It's not a good idea. So if you want to serve a local community, you have to get involved with them closely. Then identify the local community needs. So if you don't get involved with them, it's not possible to really feel their needs, their problems. What's the cause of that problems? What will happen eventually? How they are suffering? How, why this is a problem for them? In many cases, it's very difficult to understand the problem. So to understand the problem itself, you need to be involved with that community. Then with that community engagement and by repeated discussion with different level of people, maybe the leaders of that community and young generation, children, different types of people, you can discuss and find a proper understanding about that project, about that problem. So once you identify the community, identify the problem, understand the problem, then you can see, you can analyze different types of existing solutions to that problem. So there can be a lot of solutions made by different people, different organizations. You have to analyze them and find out the best possible solution involving power and energy related technology for that particular problem. Which one is the best solution, existing best solutions? And fine, that's a basic first part of humanitarian technology project design. The next part is, as I said, very common to normal project design. You have to design your own solution depending on all the existing solutions. So it's expected that you can design a better solution. Once you have the design, you have to implement that. At least you have to first make a prototype, then validate. So once you are validating, you will be getting some feedback. And based on those feedback, you can modify or redesign if necessary. And doing this process, repeating this process, you can finalize your implementation. Then you can do the testing, in the real life testing for a batch of people, a group of people, and evaluate your performance prior to finally implementing or going. It's the normal process. So design, implement, validate, redesign, finalize, test, evaluate. These are the normal process. So you may have to analyze various perspective of your solution. As I mentioned earlier, and also I'll be mentioning, different sustainable issues we need to consider. And based on that, you may have to redesign. For example, social aspect, political aspect, ethical aspect, technical aspect, more implementation aspect. So that's what we have to think, all those things, and if necessary you have to redesign. And finally, project implementation in the real life will give you another feedback, stages of feedback, and you can update always accordingly. So as I said, there are two parts: one technological aspect, another one, the first part is need assessment, finding out the local community needs, and then you have to design appropriate humanitarian technology. So that's a very difficult task. Community need analysis for a good HT project design. So what's the definition of need? I mean, the deficits or gaps between what is available and what is expected or what is required. So these need analysis should be performed at the very beginning. So sometimes we call it assets. It's possible that the community has a set of skills, talents, abilities, or individual or group abilities, skills. So you can always think about utilizing that particular asset. So these, or the villages has some resources that can be used. So that's a, there can be some asset also, so which you can use. So need an asset, you can have a lot of example. For example, modernization of agricultural system to achieve better efficient production. So if you feel that the agricultural current system is not modernized, you can go there. For example, as I said earlier, irrigation methods you can change. You can use familiar to use that. So that's the assessment part you have to consider. So these are, there are different issues regarding community need and assessment. So you have to think about what you want to do in your project. Are you interested to develop some service, some technology or policy? So what's the weakness within a community? Whether you are trying to
Excuse me.
solve an, yeah.
I believe that you had a problem with the internet. You should share your screen again, please,
Okay.
because the people cannot see your screen now. Yes, now it's okay. You can continue, please.
Okay, thank you. So participatory community need assessment. So we can think about, as I said earlier, your engagement with the community directly or indirectly. So you can just go to different families and think about how we can involve with them and to understand the real needs. So the success depends on level of participation by the community or the stakeholders. Whatever prototype or whatever project you want to implement, that's an important part. I used to give an example like this. Think about a humanitarian technology project with sustainable development for this case. What is the case? So, little girls walking very far to attend their school. So, obviously, they are facing bad weather, some sort of social hassle, social problems, and maybe you can consider like they have only one school very far in that area, so they have to walk maybe 5 kilometers or more every day. So, what will be a possible solution? So, solution is there. So, if we can provide a school bus, they can use that, enjoy that. But the question is whether local community can provide that school bus, whether that will be a possible solution or not. So because you have to consider different aspects. So, for example, a group of young villagers at the same village, they were trying to solve this problem in this way. They transformed three-wheelers into bus. So these three-wheelers are already available in their village, but the car which or a school bus is very expensive and it's not there. And later they modified it, and if you see one possible relevant application, it's not there. This particular solution, I'm just showing you to think you different other alternatives used in different other areas. This is one humanitarian activity project by Brack University, as I said, IEEE site group. So you can see that a three-wheelers can be used for different purpose, where on top there is a solar panel, so they can use the solar energy, and can existing three-wheelers can be used even for ambulance or the local transportation like that. So instead of that school bus, you have to think some sort of solution which can easily be implemented in that particular village by the villagers. So that's the way you have to design your particular project. So you have to do some critical analysis whenever you try to implement any particular project. So technological constraint is an important issue whenever you try to select a solution. So at the very beginning, being an engineer or going to be engineer, you have to be very precise in selecting the appropriate technology or proper technology. So that's a very tricky word which you should consider for the solution in your humanitarian technology project. High tech or low tech solution, or proven conventional technology, or appropriate technology, or advanced technology, innovative technology, green technology, smart technology. A lot of buzzwords are there. So that's why I'm telling, like, you decide. It's a very, I mean, very, very important issue which should be taken, because sometimes you cannot take the high tech solution which will not provide you a sustainable development, because it cannot be maintained. Low tech solutions can be preferred in that particular cases. So you can always look for appropriate technology, but sometimes conventional technology is preferred. It depends. I mean, which solution you are thinking, you have to be very much adaptive depending on your solution. So technological constraints are there because repair and maintenance problems are always there. Cost efficiency is always there. So your know-how or capacity building is an important issue, because who will ultimately provide the support for that particular technology? So those issues are very important for technological humanitarian projects. So capacity building, cost efficiency, life or duration, repair maintenance, available resources, scaling up, know-how or expertise are important factors. So I hope we have covered both the local need assessment and the technological part. So finally, I'm now telling some key steps for designing, for obtaining the sustainability. For example, long-term vision. So integrate sustainability in all the projects you are doing. So diversity of your funding sources. So these are few issues you have to consider. So while you are doing any projects, finally, I'll be giving you some key factors that you can always keep it in your mind. So what are those factors? As I said, once you have the local need assessment already done, already identified the problem, community, understand the problem, so this part is done, then you have to ask few more questions about your possible humanitarian technology project. So what's the existing practice of that project? I said earlier, before finalizing your project, you have to ask this question. So how in other countries or other part these problems are solved? You have to take it in consideration. So whether those solutions are more efficient than what you are thinking. So you have to compare. So this is a humanitarian technology project. So always you have to consider different government and non-government organizations are always involved in this respect. So please take it in consideration. Different foreign donors, even different industries can be involved in those particular humanitarian projects. So what's the best way? If you are looking for a solution, why don't you involve your key stakeholders rather than discarding them? So you have to increase the communication and outreach with all those NGOs, foreign donors, industries, and it's always better to have the diversity of funding sources. Don't rely only one funding sources, as I mentioned it earlier. So the next one is long-term forecasting. It's a humanitarian technology project. It's not for 1 month, 1 year. The impact should be long-lasting impact. So never think that the project is just for the duration of you need to implement. It must have long-term impact. So how the project will be running in future when there will be no funding. So financial analysis is a mandatory part, and no matter it's a humanitarian technology project or other project, you have to do all this debit, credit, and future resource available in order to run the project. So other factors like social, political, ethical, health issues, environmental issues, religious issues, so cultural issues, these issues are also sometimes create severe problem. So you have to consider those issues while designing the project, whether the project is scalable or not. That's an important issue. So we always try to have our project scalable. For example, we implement it in one village, so that must be a very well defined prototype or implementation so that it can easily be replicated in other villages. Other people can easily deploy the project. So that will definitely give you a long lasting impact. So one important factor in that case is the local capacity building for scalability. It's important. You have to ensure that if we totally rely on technology which cannot be transferred in the local capacity building, that will not sustain. So impact of scalable nature is always important. The next one is mode of implementation. You cannot imagine that the project will be finished all at a time. It has to be phase by phase implementation. So that's always preferable. So the finally, I can summarize the 10 key factors that's needed for implementing a humanitarian technology project considering sustainable development. First of all, the project must address a community need. I discussed a lot. You have to identify the community, that means the people, about the 3P. Again, I recall people, planet, and profit. So, who are those people? Your community. You have to understand their problem. You have to identify correctly their needs, considering the limitations at the same time. I said that need and limitations, they stand beside. So that's the first task. We discussed a lot. You have to identify the local community and their needs and assess that needs. The next one, proper mapping with the appropriate SDG. Try to connect as many SDGs as possible. So we have to look for current practice of handling the project. I mean, conventional or existing method of implementing that project. In that case also, I should emphasize on the particular technology to be used. As I mentioned earlier, whether it should be appropriate technology, advanced technology, or conventional technology, you have to think about that. So always we have to go for multiple resource resources or donors, and we have to work in collaboration rather than thinking working separately. That means initiatives from government, NGOs, foreign donors, industries, we have to take it in consideration. So always we have to think about long-term impact of that project. So forecasting the long-term status is an important factor. It's not the project period, it's the service or it's the effect that must have to sustain even after the project is ended. So financial analysis is an important factor. As I mentioned earlier, social, ethical, cultural, political, religious, health, environmental issues should be considered. And always it is better if it is scalable, and phase by phase modular implementation is an important aspect. And last of all, not the last, it's the main, it's the sustainability. I mentioned at the very beginning the sustainability in terms of financial sustainability, organizational sustainability. That means the people who are trained, the capacity building options. So you have to always ensure that those people, or at least the capacity building method where you have generated more efficient people, they will last to serve the project. So in this way, financial stability, again I repeat, even if the funding is stopped, your project cannot be stopped. There should be some revenues, because there are 3P: people, planet, and the last one is profit. You have to ensure some revenue generation so that the project can continue. So those are the 10 key factors. So you can try this simple case study about the poultry farm in a village far from the city. Farmers raise cows and chickens, so they want a modern system for their solution. So in that case, you have to just consider electricity. They don't have the electricity in their village. So what possible solution they can do for this particular poultry farm? So they don't have the vaccination heating system, modern poultry farming electrical equipments, or incubator facilities in their village. So you have to keep it in that mind. If you can serve a lot of purposes with a single project, that's better rather than targeting only one particular need. So this is a small homework you can just study and find out a proper solution for this poultry farm. So these are the aspect that I have given here. Almost 100 families are still getting no electricity. So when you are giving some solutions. Think about that, whether modular implementation, phase by phase implementation, sustainable development, far impact can be included in your project, so that other families, they can be getting this benefit in future. So their children are going to school very far, but at night rely on kerosene based lamp. So you can think about a possible, maybe solar based energy or something. So the vast land they have, that means it's indicating that you can think, still think, imagine about that. So at last we have the brainstorm session, I mean the brainstorm task 2. So the task will be, you have to design a complete humanitarian technology project. So that design is applicable in power energy sector, obviously. So please follow all the steps as described in this session. So considering the sustainable development. So for details, we'll be later on sending you some instructions, and hopefully we'll be getting very interesting humanitarian technology projects in power and energy sector, these particular areas, considering the sustainable development from each of you. Thank you. Thank you for joining this session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Fatah. It's really interesting presentation, and we learn a lot from you. We have some question in the WhatsApp group I sent for you. You can read the first question in your WhatsApp.
So one question is, give examples of projects using trending technologies like AI, IoT, machine learning, etc. Oh, that's a very good question, I should say, because nowadays it's a very important area. We call it like AI for power and energy society. So AI is an important area now also in power and energy society. And if we call AI, IoT, and machine learning, all these can be used. So for example, if you consider smart building system or smart light lighting system in the street, so you will get use of machine learning heavily when your system has a lot of utilities, lot of connections, lot of systems there. So you have to efficiently manage all your lights, fans, air conditions to minimize energy consumptions. So these problems need, I mean, very critically, it has to be solved. So I should say this smart building management, smart city problems, and uh, so these are also humanitarian projects. As I mentioned you earlier, you can also uh, consider these as a good application for AI, because IoT will be there, machine learning can be used there.
We have the second question I sent for you, Fatah.
So the second question is, I want to ask about, as a PES hack WI ambassador, we also will design a HT project. So I mean, it's my suggestion, or it's our expectation that an ambassador, no matter he or she is a student ambassador or young professional or WA, if he or she can go through this process, I mean, uh, this design process, then he or she will be capable of promoting our activities in future properly. That's why I appreciate, after listening to this 1 hour session, if you kindly just think about one of your local community problem and try to design a humanitarian technology project. And it's not a competition, it's just your learning. And if you can learn as an ambassador, it is expected you can give more advice to members, volunteers who will be in your vicinity. And we are there. We will be trying our best to give you feedback whenever you necessary. So don't feel that you are alone. So we'll be definitely trying to help you to learn more about this project design.
We have the third question in your
Yeah,
inbox.
are schools a good option to start it? I mean, so if you I'm not sure, like schools, the word school is can also be treated as university or high school. So good option to start it. I mean, first of all, you try to, I mean, what we expect at this stage, don't think about the implementation at this very first moment. This is a kind of brainstorming, and this is your learning phase. So we are trying to disseminate this knowledge to you, expecting that you will be disseminating this knowledge also to your student branch or young professional group or WI group, because here we have maybe 300 our ambassadors, but we are targeting 30,000. So that's our vision, so that everybody will be understanding humanitarian technology project design. So that's why you can start now with a simple project. You can think about also some humanitarian event. If we are, if by school, if you mean high school or under any primary school, this is also possible. Like you can go there and you can engage them with some PES small projects. And if you are talking about university, obviously, yeah, that's the place where you will be having all those materials, instruments, project facilities. And once you have some good ideas, a good design, then once you want to implement, then you can get the help from there.
We have a more one question about schools. I believe that's high school or elementary school in this case.
So the question is, what kind of preparation do we need from IEEE to work with children in schools or communities?
Community.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is very good. Like, um, this is, first of all, I appreciate. I mean, from volunteer perspective, there are a lot of scopes. Like being an engineering student or engineer, you have fundamental knowledge and about different power and energy sectors. So you can just go there and teach them even how this particular solar panel can be installed in their local community. I have heard this project just to install basic solar panel project, even school students they can do, because if there are some projects like this. So if it's a small solar panel for a small household or any alternative renewables or alternative energy sources, so you can make a preparation in your student branch or in your university, then take the prototype to this elementary school, and they'll be very much interested. Okay, fine, we can now fix it at our home, and we can generate some electricity, so they can fix it in their own village houses. So this type of things you can do. And IEEE Smart Village also supports this type of initiatives. Also, IEEE Epics, IEEE, IEEE Foundation, these are also some other uh, places where their motivation is also same. So it's possible that in future, as an ambassador, we also want that humanitarian event you can conduct. So it's a good initiative. I appreciate that.
Do you have more question? If you have a question, you can share in the WhatsApp group. Uh, no, we have one question here. I send for you just a moment.
So, is there any other way? The question is there any other way to gather more fund? Can we associate with local NGOs? Yes, as I mentioned in the session, like always, always we recommend to have multiple sources of funding. So, if you are targeting a local need, local community need, as I mentioned earlier, so don't rely only one single funding source. Involve NGOs. Then there is no harm because every donor they know what's the total budget and which portion they are providing. So when you are writing a project, if you clearly show that okay, this is my total budget and I am expecting this much fund only from IEEE PES or IEEE HSC, and rest of the fund I want to collect it from A, B, or these sources, is most welcome. So you can gather other, you can include other source of funding. And the next question, like where to get other funding, as I mentioned, we are very new at this moment. IEEE PES has a vision, has a plan. Next year, we may launch more and more funding opportunities. And apart from that, in this video, when you can listen later on also, IEEE has 10 more opportunities where you can look for funding. As I mentioned, IEEE Foundation, IEEE Humanitarian Activity Committee, IEEE Site, IEEE EPICS. So, humans of IEEE, so IEEE move, different other organizations are working in the same direction, but not all of them are giving you funding. But some of them can give you technical knowledge, and some of them can give you ideas, and some of them can really contribute. For example, IEEE Foundation, IEEE HSC, they are providing a lot of funding. So this is the funding source that IEEE can provide you. We have one more questions. Are we affected? Like, can ambassadors from different institutions or places work on a same project as a team? I mean, yeah, there is no harm. Like, as far as the project needs, for example, two or three experts, volunteers. So, I mean, two or three ambassadors, if they are in fact living very close vicinity, the two institutions are actually, they are very close, targeting the local community which is also very close. So in that case, two three ambassadors, they can form a group and work together. I don't think as far as they are working hard to do a good project, I don't think it's a problem.
We have more one. I believe that you can answer more one or two questions after that because the time.
Okay. uh, the next question is, how can a bus project sustain itself if it doesn't donate for a community
Uh, yeah, the person sends the other question to complete the
I mean,
previous
how
one.
can you obtain revenue from that? Yeah, that's what I'm telling. That example what we are giving, how can a bus project sustain? I mean, that's a wrong solution. We did not say that's just a provoking solution. Like those young kids, they have to work. So what can be the solution for those school girls? Bus can be a solution. Oh no, that's not the solution. We said that that's a wrong solution for that village, because they cannot in fact maintain that bus. So we gave an alternate solution, as you have seen, the three wheelers, which already exists in their village. So only what they have to do, maybe they can use some alternate energy solutions, renewables, so that it can be motorized, fast. They can use it for transportation during their school period. At the same time, that particular three wheelers can be used for other purposes, for example ambulance purpose, for example transporting old people from one place to villages, or pregnant women or other women. That's why we say that in that way, rest of the day for other commutation, they can earn some money and give that money or accumulate that money for transporting those little girls to their schools.
I believe that we don't have more question. Uh,
Yeah, that's
and
great. So we are
yeah,
in time.
yeah, yes. The other point that is important to you share, Fatah share with you two brainstorming in this presentation. Um, Later, you send an email with some deadline to you send this brainstorming texts. With this is part of your learning process, so it's really important you send this um, small text with your brainstorm, and this is part of the PS hack ambassador program. And the second part of the ambassador program, we should make one small event or a presentation based in this presentation in your ITP unit. So we work with ambassadors to try share and increase the knowledge about humanitarian project based based in this presentation. Um, this is this is the main task that um, you should work in the next 2 months uh, by the end of this year. And in the end of the year, you should send the report of your activities. So you complete the ambassador program and you receive a certificate. Like you said in the email, the official email, you are preliminary selected to be PS hack ambassador. If you would like to complete this program, you should complete the task. Do you have more information, Fatah, that you would like to share?
I think, yeah, I think we all believe that our volunteers are very much powerful. So I have seen it. I mean, Thiago, you can remember, like in our PES Congress, Student Congress. So I couldn't even imagine like the response we got there, and hereafter a lot of emails what we received. So it clearly indicates that our volunteers, they are very much enthusiastic about these humanitarian technology projects, initiatives, and events. So my message to you, like, don't feel that you have to complete a humanitarian technology project within these 2 months. No, that's not the expectation. What Thiago has clearly explained you, like you have to brainstorm these two tasks. So that's a learning process, and a report, he said, and an event in your section. So you are going to be our ambassadors. So we expect that in your whole student branch, whole YP or whole WIE or local sections, chapters, you will be promoting this PES hack, and everybody, every PS, non-PS members even, they will be aware of this humanitarian technology project. And in this way, what is our ultimate target? So we want to attract more and more volunteers, more and more members. At the same time, some members, they are not getting any uh, interaction or activities from PES. Maybe, I'm just telling, maybe they will get interest, and they will also be interested to join those project, and in this way they can get some membership benefit. So uh, I should again thank to Thiago, and again thank to our Juan Carlos, the membership VP. So in fact, this is a membership driven event, so which will clearly give the value to our member, so they can at least get a platform to implement their technological background knowledge for the purpose of humanity.
Thank you, Fatah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending this great webinar from Fatah and Humanitarian Activity Committee. We hope we receive many reports, and we hope to see many humanitarian activities in the different IEEE units around the world. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.